Hi everybody, this is Rich Ruddicup, Master Gardener. Welcome to my back 40 garden in my southeastern Washington home. Today we're going to make a video about tool care, sharpening your clippers, snippers, and lopers. Having sharp tools is very important, and it's not hard to do. We're going to start off with the most basic of tools, the clippers, and then we'll move on to nippers, and then a lopers, and finally we'll talk about some variants of that, but they're all very much the same. Let's take a closer look at a bypass clipper. This is a Velcro Model 2 bypass clipper. It has a flat blade that passes by the anvil blade, hence the term bypass clipper. You can tell if these clippers are sharp by looking at the blade edge. From either side, if there are nicks, dings, or imperfections, you should probably sharpen it. The other thing you can do is look directly at the edge, perpendicular to the edge, and if it appears like the edge is a white line, it probably means it's dull and should be sharpened. I took several pictures of the blade with attachments to my iPhone, a couple at 15 power and a couple at 60 power. These clippers were not very dull, but we're going to go ahead and sharpen them as part of the video anyway. Okay, let's go through sharpening these Velcro number 2s. The first thing I like to do is take a good look at them and see if you see anything obviously wrong. Sometimes when I sharpen clippers for the master gardeners, I can find clippers that have missing parts or maladjustments. The first thing is there give in between the two blade sections? These clippers don't seem to have give. They are a little bit dirty, so what I normally do is just take a wire brush, and you can use any kind of wire brush. It's got to be sturdier than a toothbrush, though. A toothbrush don't work. Kind of clean it up, both sides, get the dirt off, get the sap off, and if it's got really sticky stuff, what I like to do is use some good old Clorox cleaner, okay? This also disinfects it, and if you've been to one person's garden and you don't want to carry disease to another person, you should probably disinfect your clippers before you go from garden to garden. When I trim my dahlias, I do this when I'm suspect that I might have a dahlia virus in my garden, and if I have a plant that I'm worried about, if I work on it, then I will always disinfect the clippers first. Okay, so we're going to clean it up. We're going to dry it. It doesn't take long for that disinfectant to work. Okay, and now you need to get a good grip on the clippers because we're gonna sharpen this blade. Okay, this is the first blade. It's called the cutting edge blade. Then there is an anvil blade that is on this side. So to do the cutting edge sharpening, I use a little carbide tool. Now, in olden days, people used stones, they used rasps, they used files, but you can go down and buy one of these at the big box stores. This happens to be a Garden Plus trademark. I saw some in a big box store today for about 10 bucks. And all it is it's got a little carbide blade on the edge. You can actually carry this around in your toolbox or in your hip pocket when you're out working in the garden. And if you need to sharpen your clippers, you can just pull this out and go for it. Now Velcros, they have a 23-inch bevel. Oh, don't get scared about the term bevel. You don't need to worry about that 23-inch. Just go in and sharpen the edge at about the same bevel that's on the clippers when you first bought it. Now the plant doesn't know the difference. 23 degrees for a Velcro is just what they've determined is optimum for their clippers. So let's take this little sharpener and we'll make a couple strokes on that edge. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6? I don't know, maybe 5, maybe 10. Depends on how much you think it needs to be sharpened. Now you can look at it, and if there is nicks or gouges in the blade, some of you guys using the cut wire, I know, don't mess with me, then you might need to use a rotary tool like a Dremel or a bigger file before you start this particular sharpening technique. Now, some people say just go back on the edge, and there's probably a burr, and I'll try to get a picture of that burr when I do the after checks on the back of this edge. And you should take that burr off, because if catches on the anvil blade, anvil cutter, it'll make a little notch in that edge. So two ways to do it. You can take this carbide cutter and just run it along the edge. Or what I like to do is I found these little diamond hones that I use for some of my other tools in my tool shop. You can find these online. They're called Easy Lap Diamond. They come in different grits. I don't think the grit makes any difference. But what I like is they're flat. And so I can just rub them over the edge 2 or 3 times and it'll take that burr right off, okay? And then I flip them over and I look at this other anvil edge. And if it's got notches or gouges in it, I'll run the little diamond hone over it also. Just lap it a little bit. Now sometimes that edge can get worn and you may need to run a rotary cutter in here to reestablish the edge, but most times that edge does not need to get sharpened. So now that we've got that part done, what's next? Well, you should lubricate it, and you can use just about any lubricant that you like, 3-in-1 oil, silicone spray, WD-40. I happen to have a can of this here, and just liberally put it on, and make sure you get the spring. The spring will get sticky, and just spray it in there, work it, work it, work it, work it, okay, and then dry it off, okay. And you can use a rag. I'm using paper towel right now, okay, and there you go. The spring came off. I'm going to put it back on, and there you go. Dry a little bit more. I now have a sharpened clipper. There are 2 more adjustments you can make to the Velcro pruners. First thing is the thumb latch, this little bar here. It could get sticky like mine is right now for a release, and you can adjust the tension of that by simply loosening the screw a little bit, and then this latch moves freely, and you're back in business with a good thumb latch. The second adjustment you can make is to adjust how close the blades pass each other. You want them fairly tight so you don't get that bark tear away I talked about earlier, and it's real easy to do on the Velcros. There's a lock screw for the tightening adjustment. You loosen the lock screw up, okay, and then loosen the adjustment nut, and this little locking device will swing out of the way, and at that point you can set this nut to whatever tension you want, and remember, get it pretty tight. And once you've got it where you want it, then you swing the little keeper back, tighten up the screw, and you're back in business. You've now got a good adjusted set of clippers. Snippers. I call snippers a broad category of tiny clippers that people use to cut flowers, deadhead flowers, use in greenhouses. I use my snippers in my greenhouse to thin seedlings. They're typically very small. They don't cost a lot. They're pretty much in the category I call throwaway clippers. This particular brand happens to be Fiskars, but Corona, Velcro, everybody makes them. Their prices are all over the market. But most of them have a little bit different blade type, and that's what I wanted to show with this part of the video. The bevels on the blades are quite a bit steeper. They're 75 to 85 degrees in angle, and both blades cut. They're typically the same. But cleaning and sharpening them is done exactly the same as the Velcro number 2 that I just did for you. You clean, you inspect. There's not a lot of adjustments. This one happens to have a screw, and I don't think I've ever messed with it. But the blades do get dull, and you take care of them the same way you did the Velcro. You get your trusty little carbide sharpening tool, you lay it on the bevel, and you take a couple strikes. Okay, and it doesn't take many for these because they're pretty light duty, and you have just a real sharp little snippers ready to go and back in business. All right, the next brand or type that I like to talk about is Lopers. These typically are your big boys. Use them for cutting big branches. Most all the designs today are also bypass pruners, just like the Velcro. And so in design, they're pretty much the same. They have a curved blade with a leading cutting edge, an anvil cutter that the bypass blade goes by, a pivot point, probably some kind of shock absorber or bumper. They typically don't have as many adjustments as your good hand pruners do, but they have a tension adjustment to adjust for play from blade to blade. Now, these are a little bit bigger and harder to sharpen, and you can still do them with this little guy that I showed you on the other ones. But I have found another tool, being a tool guy, that I now use, and it is a larger, it's called a chestnut tool blade sharpener, and it is the same type of sharpener as the other one. It's got a carbide blade, but it's got a nice big handle, and so with my big hands on a big tool, I can grab this guy and really put the strokes to her, and it works quite a bit better for larger tools. All right, but the process is the same. You clean the tool, disinfect the tool, inspect it, and then use a carbide blade tool to stroke the blade. There are all kinds of variants of garden clippers, nippers, and lopers out there. I wanted to show you just a few that I have in my tool chest, but all of them use pretty much the same method for sharpening. These are a little pair of Corona snips. They have curved jaws and rivet, so I call them a throwaway tool, but they can be sharpened just like the other nippers. Just a few strokes of that carbide blade. These are a pair of rose pruners for deadheading. Again, it's got the sharp squared edges, but it has a band on the side for capturing the spent blooms. You have to take this off, but again, sharpening the clipper is exactly the same way. There's another type of cut and hold type of pruner out there to give you extended reach. They come in all kinds of lengths, but they have a basic jaw, just like your Velcro 2s, an anvil blade, and on the other side are a couple jaws that come off, and you can take them off to sharpen them. Same process, use your carbide tool. And the last one is my bad boy that I bought this spring. It's a pneumatic pruner for my raspberry bushes, but same type of thing, curved blade, anvil blade, bypass pruner, sharpen it exactly the same way. So the technique works on just about any kind of clippers that you might have in your garden. Okay, now I'm messing with you, but not really too much. How many of you have gone out and snipped some basil or snipped some parsley or even gone after lettuce with a pair of scissors? Now these happen to be Scotch, but that doesn't make any difference. What I really want you to see is, guess what? Look at the blades. These are just like the snipper blades. They're an 75 to 80 degree bevel. You can sharpen these just as well with your little carbide tool. Few strokes on this one, few strokes on this one, and Mama's shears are back to being sharp. In summary, it's easy to sharpen your clippers. All you need is a little carbide edged tool like this that you can find in many places in the Tri-Cities, a few strokes on the cutting edge, and you're pretty much back in business. So let's wrap this video up. Thanks for watching. Bye.